this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. My guest this evening is Howard Schwartz from the Better Business Bureau. Howard, welcome. How are you?
I'm well, Pete. How are you?
Good to see you.
Same here.
It's been a while.
6 months?
Yeah, I was going to say about 5 or 6 months. So who is Howard Schwartz and what exactly is the Better Business Bureau?
Well, let's start with Better Business Bureau.
All right.
It started out more than a century ago as an advertising vigilance organization. So they wanted to make sure that people were actually delivering what they were saying and that they weren't making outrageous or deceptive claims.
Okay.
And over the years, when you'd say Better Business Bureau, people would think that, well, that's the place you go when you have a complaint.
Right.
And we still do process complaints against an identifiable individual or entity. Mm-hmm. And I say that because if it's a scam, if you don't know who the person is, we can't help out.
Right.
But we not only do that, we also are proactive now. So I'd come on a show like yours to help educate folks, hope they would share it with their loved ones, their neighbors, their colleagues, mm-hmm. because education really is the key to protecting ourselves. And the other thing we do is we monitor on an ongoing basis marketplace behavior. Okay. And when necessary, we put out news releases to help people, to warn them, those types of things. Okay. And it's a wonderful organization. It's since I joined in 2008, it was just about the period when Better Business Bureau was rebranding. And it became, at that point, it transitioned a bit to where we encourage people to go to our website, spend 1 minute to look up the name of a business or professional, right, to see if there's a pattern of complaints or not. And if they do that, they can avoid having problems. And every year in January, I put together the top 10 most complained about types of businesses for the previous year. Okay. And as well as the top 10 most inquired about types of businesses. And what I found, Pete, is that there's a correlation between the two. The top 10 most complained about types of businesses are things like cable and satellite television, mm-hmm. New and used car sales, telephone, wireless, those types of things, because these are things that we use every day. Right. And we have a love-hate relationship with them.
Of course.
And the correlation is, we tend to hate them more than love them sometimes.
Exactly.
But the correlation is when you look at the top 10 most inquired about types of businesses, they're not on the top 10 most complained about businesses. So therefore, if you do your research, you'll tend to have less chance that you'll be unhappy and have to file a complaint. Really? And who's Howard Schwartz?
You are.
I am. And I was in television for 15 years, did some radio, and now I'm letting other folks ask the questions, and hopefully I can answer them.
Did you like being in radio and TV?
It was fun. Radio in particular. I didn't have much to say. I was young at the time, and a friend of mine says, well, you're not going to be good in radio until you have something to say except for time and temperature.
Exactly. Right.
And television was also very good, but it's at the time it was very unforgiving. We didn't have the same practices you'd have now, or the same ability to do satellite. It was very new in those days. Yeah. And we're not talking about the 50s here, we're talking about the 80s. So being an anchorman actually helps you get over that a little bit, being able to do the live hits and speak to people like that way. And it helps you also come out of your shell.
Exactly.
And that was what I liked the most about it. Also, you get a chance to see when there's a crowd around or people are investigating something, you get a chance to stick your head in there and see the things that are interesting, but that you don't get a chance to because there's some sort of a calamity. Right. And you get to help people, and that's what I like the most. I was a health reporter. Oh, okay. So if I would pick up New England Journal of Medicine, see an interesting story, if one person could be saved from any sort of sickness or problem, then I did my job, as is the case today. If we can stop one person from losing money from deception or fraud, then we've done our jobs.
You've done your job. Speaking of fraud and deception and everything else going on in the world of the Better Business Bureau, I'm sure the holidays, which we're about to come upon, are a very busy time for you guys because there's all sorts of, should I say the word bad people running around out there as far as scams and utility scams and different types of other things go. I was wondering if maybe we can talk a little bit about.
Oh, sure. As the busiest retail season in the year gets into gear, it's ripe. It's a ripe time for the criminals, mm-hmm. and we tend to call them scammers, and they are criminals, plain and simple. Okay. And what we will do is we will get complaints about marketplace problems that people have, and we can help them with that. Unfortunately, you have a lot of criminals in the malls, in the parking lots, trying to take advantage of the fact that we're distracted.
Right.
In and out of the stores, at home, maybe cooking, preparing foods. We get a phone call from someone, and there could be any one of a number of imposters. And you mentioned, for example, utilities.
Correct.
And we saw for the last couple of years a trend in which people would receive a phone call, like many of the other IRS scam, for example.
Sure.
So someone would pretend to be from the utility, say that they owed money, and that they would cut off their electricity or their gas if they didn't give an untraceable payment, so by wire transfer or gift card or those types of things. So obviously a utility will never call you,
No,
and it'll never threaten to turn off your
Cut
electricity.
off, right.
Exactly. And really we should understand that when somebody comes to your door, pardon me, like Eversource, for example, said that if somebody comes to your door, they will have good identification. And it's very rare they'll come to your door. That might be to access or to fix equipment. And the other issues are that we have to watch that front door so carefully.
Right.
And I can speak from personal experience. 3 weeks ago, I was at home, doorbell rang, and it was some fellow with a clipboard who'd parked in my driveway. And he said he was from a cable company. Did I want to switch? I'd never heard of this company before. And when I asked for ID, he opened his wallet and closed it just as quickly.
Ooh.
And the only thing he had around his neck was a tag and a lanyard with a card that was orange and black lettering saying number 143. To this day, I have no idea who it was, but I politely told him I wasn't interested. These guys will not only come up to your door to try and sell you something, but in some cases, they might be casing your place for a robbery, or sometimes they'll ring the doorbell to see if anyone's at home.
Right.
If they're not, you could have a problem. Someone might do a break-in. So the most important thing to remember at this time of year, first of all, pardon me, the utilities will not just cut off your electricity.
Right.
And one of the reasons is because when it reaches a certain temperature, they're not going to let people freeze.
No, of course not.
They will give you not only an opportunity to understand what's going on, but to fix any kind of situation that you have, so there is no interruption of your service. But the front door, the telephone, those are two of the main vectors for criminal activity. I think, though, Pete, it's, you and I were talking, one of the most important things that we have to remember is we place an awful lot of emphasis on high-tech crimes,
Right.
computers and those types of things. And the vast majority of fraud and identity theft occur from crimes of contact, low-tech sort of crime. So we mean things like, if you're ever standing in line at the checkout line and you look around, there are people who are texting, there are people who are staring out into space, not paying attention. We still have pickpockets.
Right.
We still have purse snatchers.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of times you'll see someone put down their wallet or their credit card while they're talking to the cashier. And what we have to remember is that somebody can come, grab your wallet, grab your money, and then just take off.
And just go.
The other thing we should be thinking about is our surroundings in the parking lot. We've got to be very careful. Our hands are full. And we're taught certain things when we're younger. You don't get into a car with a stranger, don't run with scissors, those types of things. But I think that we've forgotten about the immediate potential for problem. And with so many people out, again, it's distraction. They are hoping with our arms full that we are not going to be paying attention, and then they can take advantage of us.
And I was gonna say, we're along the lines of the holiday season. I remember, I think it was last year, there were people getting deliveries at home, and people were coming and swiping deliveries off of their doorstep.
Yeah, there were a couple of things involving deliveries. There are criminals who actually will follow a U.S. Postal Service truck or a FedEx truck or whatever. They'll wait until the box is delivered, and then they'll actually out of sight, then they'll grab the box. If it's something interesting, they'll keep it. Otherwise, they'll toss it. And that makes a case for, if you're expecting a delivery, to have it delivered perhaps to a neighbor or a trusted friend or family, or have it delivered to work so that it can't disappear. And especially if you live in an apartment building, there's a common lobby. But something else we should be looking for is the fake missed delivery notice. And I don't know, it's got a missed fake delivery or fake missed delivery. What happens is you get a phone call from somebody or you get an email more likely. And the email says, we tried to deliver a package, you weren't home, so click here or open this attachment to arrange another delivery. And of course, if we do that,
It's a virus.
It's a virus, Or it might take us to a lookalike site and ask us to put in credit card information.
No.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
And in fact, the protocol is anyone who's ever received a package knows that the delivery person will leave a tag on the door that gives you several options, either go and pick it up or have them deliver it again. So we can beat these kinds of things if we just think about it and if we, again, talk about it to family and friends and our children and our nieces and nephews.
Now, as far as thinking about it, what other precautions do you think someone can take to?
Well, we talked about the low tech kind of problems that we have. Let's talk for a moment about the internet.
All right, okay, sure.
And someone asked me today, they said, with all the dangers of the internet, do you think that consumers are sort of becoming immune, that we're not listening anymore? And I think quite the opposite. I think if you look since Windows 95 came into being, we've had to learn a lot about the potential dangers of the internet. But let's talk about for the season in particular.
Sure.
When we find something we want, it's perfect, it's what we want, and then we'll start clicking around to find the best price. Well, after 5 or 6 clicks, we may not know where we are.
Exactly.
So the two things that can happen is, first of all, it might be a bogus site, which will take your credit card information and then not deliver anything to you.
Correct.
But the other issue with going online is if you've clicked 3 or 4 times, it might be a site that you know nothing about. And there are sites that just pop up for no reason except to scam people during the holidays. So what we should be looking for is before we give over a credit card, once we find that really good price, is that we should make sure, you can check with Better Business Bureau to make sure that the company is legitimate, that it doesn't have a pattern of problems, but also we should be looking in the address bar of our browsers where it says www, and we typically see the letters HTTP.
Correct.
When it's a secure site, it says HTTPS. The S is for secure.
Okay, sure.
And you see a little padlock icon. And that should be there anytime you're, pardon me, giving personal or financial information. And what that tells you is that the vendor is taking the necessary steps to protect your information between your computer and theirs. And that if anybody were to try to intercept the communications, that it would just be gibberish. They wouldn't be able to make anything out of that. Another thing we should be thinking about for 2 reasons, pardon me, is viruses. And look at it from a new perspective. Everybody, or a lot of people have antivirusware, anti-malware software, but they don't update it. And they don't scan their computers every week. And even if you're only on once or twice, you don't know what's going to happen. So you can not only lose your files, have someone digging around, going after your contacts. But there's another thing, and I don't know if you remember back in October, the internet had a sort of brownout.
Yes.
And what the hackers did was they used a bunch of people's infected computers, and they joined them all together, and they launched the attack on the internet. So it would be the equivalent of you receiving 10,000 calls, telephone calls within a minute at your home. It just became overwhelmed. So now it's sort of a community thing. In other words, we should not just be protecting our computers with antivirus, anti-malware software just for ourselves. We now see that if our computers can be co-opted and used for bad purposes like this, there are things we can do, but it makes the urgency of protecting our computers all the more important, and it also makes a case for turning off our computers at night. So it's really become a community thing right now. We have to work together on this.
Howard Church and the Better Business Bureau, would you mind sticking around?
Of course.
All right, we'll be right back.
Time to wake up. I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Don't forget, you've got a job to do today.
Hey, Mom. I got the job. Thanks. I've got the job. Welcome aboard.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator.
this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show, and sitting here with Howard Schwartz from the Better Business Bureau. Howard, welcome back.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks. So, Howard, we were talking a little bit about during the first segment about utility scams, and I was wondering if maybe we can pick up on that a little bit and then move on to our next topic.
Sure. There are a couple of types of utility scams. We discussed the threat to turn off your electricity, supposedly because you owe money.
Right.
But there's another utility scam that might involve somebody coming to your home and offering you to sign up with another electricity wholesaler.
Okay.
Now we know we have our own choice. You take your statement, you go to energizect.com,
Correct, right.
and you can compare the various wholesale prices. Well, there are some folks who will come up to your door and try and get you to sign up with another company, and unfortunately, they can start putting all sorts of charges on your credit card.
Okay.
Switch your supplier from a good one to one that might have a lot higher prices. Or again, they might be casing your home to break into it after. The bottom line is we should be proactive rather than reactive.
Okay.
If we want to choose a supplier, then we should go out and find one rather than letting someone into our house or calling us. And at this time of year, let's get back to the distraction issue.
Right. Okay.
Phone calls.
Right.
Now, we know that phone calls, that a great deal of the fraud that we see comes from the telephone.
Yes.
People threatening us, people promising us that we can win lotteries, people calling us up and asking for money because supposedly their kid is in an accident or has been arrested.
Correct.
This time of year, you might get a call from a charity or someone pretending to be from a charity.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, how do you know what charity they're with? How do you know they're legitimate? We want to do well, and our generosity is one of the things that the criminals will play off of.
Mm-hmm.
So what Better Business Bureau recommends is, again, be proactive. If you want to give to a charity, go online, find one that you like, check their record. We have a website called give.org.
Okay.
And that's the charity arm of Better Business Bureau. And essentially, we have 20 standards of charity accountability, including administration, what percentage of a dollar goes towards marketing and administration, those types of things. As opposed to receiving a phone call, and we should never be giving out information over the phone, like a credit card,
Right.
unless we initiate that call.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key right there. Goodness, we've had people who call up pretending they're with the doctor's office and saying, well, there have been some changes in the health insurance laws, and can you just give us your insurance card and your social security card numbers, and you don't give it out. Call the dentist or the doctor's office and make sure.
Right.
But to get back to the time of year that we're at, there's something new. When we go up to the cash register at the end, for years they would ask, will that be cash or credit card? And then it became, will that be credit card or debit card?
Right.
Well, there's a new question, and that is, would you like a paper receipt or would you like to have it emailed to you? Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that at ATMs. We're seeing that at gas pumps, financial institutions, hotels, car rental places. And it's giving us the opportunity to save paper, first of all.
Right.
Some people, though, love the convenience of receiving a receipt that way on their smart device. However, in order to do that, we're giving up a bit of our anonymity.
Okay.
Because anytime we give out our email address, there's a substantial chance that information will be shared with a third party.
Yes.
And at the very least, we could end up with a lot of marketing emails that we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So probably the best thing to do is to open up a second email account. Doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
And let everything except for personal email go to that. So if you have to sign up for a discount card or coupons, give that second email address so that you don't get all of that unwanted email there.
I actually do. I actually have a secondary email address for just that purpose. If I'm placing an order online or if I'm calling a company, placing an order over the phone, what's your email address, blah, blah, blah. All right, here you go.
Right.
That's all. That's it.
And we forget about it, that something like an email address can help people who know how to work the internet, help them get enough of a profile on us
Right.
that they can make problems for us. Sorry, it's the end of the day, Pete.
That's
My head's
okay,
fried.
Howard. No, you're good. You're good.
But so when we get to the cash register, if you do opt for an emailed receipt, and by the way,
Yes.
there are people who will always want paper in their
Paper
hands.
receipt, right.
If I'm reconciling my statement, I want to see the paper.
Correct.
But it's a generational thing.
Right.
Younger folks tend to want it to come by email. Probably the best piece of advice is if you do get a paperless receipt, make sure before you leave the store on your smart device
It's there.
that it's there, because sometimes people make mistakes.
Right.
They get the email address
They type
wrong.
it in wrong.
But I will tell you, one of the
Yeah.
one of the best reasons to get an email receipt,
Yeah.
you don't end up with a wallet crammed with
Exactly.
receipts.
Exactly.
Guilty as charged.
Exactly, right, me too. Me too. Now, last time you and I were together, we actually talked about, and let's see if we can pick this up for a couple minutes on the segment. We talked about the security of the chip card.
Yes.
Has anything changed since you and I have last seen each other or last talked?
For the most, no.
Okay, all right.
What has changed is that there are many more retail outlets. More and more people have got the smart terminals.
Right.
And last season, we remember that they taped over the card reader saying, we don't have it activated yet. And part of the problem was that it took a long time to process each chip payment.
Right.
But it was a liability shift. And one of the reasons these chip cards came in was so that the banks could say, if a retailer did not have the latest equipment to protect you, then if there's fraud, the retailer has to pay the money, not the bank. Well, the problem with the chip card is that there's still that magnetic strip on the back.
Right.
And that has to be there for now simply because not everybody has the technology to take a chip card.
Right.
And we have to give out that credit card number, expiration date, and so on when we're on the internet. There's still no cure for that. But the chip cards themselves, I think that the time will come when it's not just a liability shift, but you have to have those machines installed. And I think one of the things that will help that, of course, it's going to be money that you have to put up, but one of the things that will help is something to speed up the process.
Right.
Because if you've used a chip card or you're standing behind a line of people, it slows things down, and consumers have no patience today.
Exactly. I was actually at my local banking institution the other day, going into the ATM to do a deposit, and they changed out their ATM machine. Their ATM machine now reads their chip cards. It used to be where you just put it was a chip card based ATM card, but you just like put the card in, swiped it in, slid it in, slid it out, there you go. But now it actually, you insert the card into the machine and it actually keeps it there until the transaction is over, and then it'll eject back out and you can take your card. It's like very...
It's different.
It is very different because the other day was the first time I did it. It took me a second. I'm like, what is this? And then I'm like, oh, that's what it is. And then when you looked at the screen, when you looked at the display screen, it gave a little tutorial of what to do if this was your first time doing it that way. And it took a little bit of time to figure it out, but I did it.
Well, and you know, the countries that have implemented this technology have seen a tremendous decrease in credit card fraud. So if you go to Europe or Canada, and one of the things they do, and it's a very good step that we should implement, is if you're at a restaurant, for example, they will bring the point of sale terminal to your table. So the employee never touches your credit card.
Okay.
And they give you the receipt at the table, and they're trying to eliminate as many people as they can from touching your credit card.
Right.
Let's go back online though. You've got to give that same number. There's no protection. You can't use a chip. You can use a chip card, but the chip isn't going to do anything if you have to go online and put in your credit card number and the 3-digit code and your expiration date. Exactly. Hopefully soon we'll get rid of those magnetic stripes. We're getting into a point now where we know that simple passwords and logins aren't working.
Right.
So some places have adopted what's called multi-factor authentication. So what would happen is you try and log on to a banking site.
Okay.
And before you can actually get in, they'll say, great, we will send you a 5-digit code to your cell phone. You put that in, and then you can log in. And the reason for that is once that's set up, if somebody gets hold of your information, your login and password through a data breach, they still won't be able to get into your account.
Because they don't know your fact.
Because they don't have your phone.
Exactly.
And they're talking about bioscanning now, checking, having eye scanners, James Bond kind of thing, or fingerprint scanners. Not far away, because the system now doesn't work. It's not safe.
Really? You think that could be down the road somewhere?
I don't think it's very far down the road, Pete, because of the huge amounts of money that people are losing through fraud. And we're doing our best, but we've also got to remember that there are some things that are out of our hands.
Right.
Data breaches, theft of personal information, there's nothing we can do about that. What we can do is be very careful when we're giving out information,
Right.
like the email address, like our telephone numbers, those types of things. Because the currency now isn't so much a credit card, it's personal information.
Right.
And for example, 2 years ago, an American Express Gold card might go on the black market for $50.
Yes.
Not worth so much now, maybe $5, maybe $10. Right. What is worth a lot is the criminals will sell a package of personal information on somebody, their social, their birth date, and whatever. Because with a stolen identity, they can get all sorts of credit cards in a very short period of time. So we've got to be very, very careful of the things that we can control, what kind of information we give out and where. But we also have to resign ourselves that there are some things we can't stop. Therefore, what we recommend is using a credit card rather than a debit card.
Okay.
And for folks who don't have credit cards, perhaps use a preloaded card. And the reason is, it's a personal story actually, was just before the Target breach was announced.
Yep.
And we're not picking on Target, they were just one of many.
Right.
I found out that, or I'd used actually my debit card a few days earlier to pay for something. And I'm watching the television, I'm saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. Well, since I use a debit card, if someone were to steal that information, as they did, they could empty my bank account.
Right.
And if I would get the money back, it would be very difficult. But most of the time you get nothing back.
Correct.
So when you're online, when you're in a store, use that credit card, because even though there's a credit card company logo on the card, it's still not a credit card.
Right.
It comes out of your account. Well, actually, what people ask, well, why do they ask you, is that debit or credit?
Yeah.
When you say debit, it's because you want cash back.
Correct.
That's it.
If you want credit, you just want it to
Put someone else's dime for a month.
Exactly. Well, Howard Schwartz, we're about to run out of time, so I want to thank you for coming down tonight. Hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, we'll do. I enjoyed it very much.
Well,
Thank you.
thank
Pete.
you, sir. On behalf of Howard Schwartz, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next week.